Hi guys, and welcome to the latest Iris podcast. I am your host, MC, and a lady in the streets, but a freak in the sheets. Kide! Yay! Woo, 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 woo. Thank you. I was waiting for that. Today with us, we have Adam Tyler, whose film, Just Me, has been shortlisted for British Best Short, supported by Film 4. And the winner will receive, drumroll, services by Pinewood Studio and get a UK-wide audience from Film 4 on all 4. Hey Adam, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming over. I'm sorry about the mess. I wasn't expecting company. How have you been? Tell me what you've been up to.
A lot of writing in my living room while being locked down in the house. I imagine everyone's answer to that has been kind of similar.
No, some people have been doing a lot of workouts, finding themselves. So I would have accepted that
Some of
too.
that, yeah. Gardening,
Yes.
quite a lot of gardening.
Are you good at gardening?
Yeah, I've got better. Yeah, love it.
What's your favorite flower?
My favorite flower is kind of lavender. I'm gonna say lavender today.
All right, that's good. Today.
Yeah,
it can change. It can
there's a lot of flowers.
I think I only know about 6 flowers, and that's about actual names. I know there are more than 6, but 6 are the ones I know confidently. Well, yeah, thank you for coming. I like to treat my interviews as if they're a first date.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions just to, see if we connect, see if it's worth carrying on this podcast,
Okay,
or
great.
if we should just say goodnight at the door and delete each other's numbers.
Perfect.
Does that sound okay
Let's
for you?
do it.
So the most important question to me, what star sign are you?
Libra, but I had to think about it. I haven't thought about that for a really long time.
It's something really close to my heart.
Cool.
I like a Libra. They're good, quite balanced, quite fair, a little bit indecisive sometimes.
Yes.
And can tend to be sometimes unconfrontational.
Yeah.
See, I know you. I can feel that Libra energy. What would you say is your biggest pet peeve?
What's a pet peeve?
Something that really annoys you, something that that thing that just gets under your skin.
That is a really good question.
Thank you. I've been on many dates.
I'm gonna have to give the non-answer, which is that I like to try and find a positive spin on almost everything.
That's fine. That's a lovely answer.
Cool.
You can be like me and just waiting for someone to annoy you so you can leave. But no, you try and find good. I like that. What superpower would you have if you could have any superpower in the world?
I would have the power to cure coronavirus. That would be my first power.
But you only get one.
I'm going all in on the topical answers.
Yeah, great.
Okay, well that would have to be it then.
So then you'd use it and then...
there's better ones.
Yeah.
Let me think of a different one.
Go on.
That's a lazy answer. Superpower. I mean, I would have to go for something big and grand, and curing inequality or something like that.
That is all. Yeah, I know. I really like the fact that your powers are very much saving. I'm really self-absorbed, so all my powers are shoot fire or move things with my nothing that helps anyone. But I think that I look really cool doing it.
Well, I guess it would depend on the situation, wouldn't it? If you put me in a particular situation, then I would probably have just a circumstantial answer that would be yeah. If it was we're going to a party, then that would be different.
That's fair. No, I accept that answer. I think it's great. Cool. And last question on my dating list.
Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite thing about yourself?
Thank you for asking. These are really hard questions.
This is how intense I am.
Get easier from here. Yeah. What is my favorite thing about myself? Self-love is quite a new concept for me. So right now I would go for, I think that I am a very caring partner, and I guess I'm proud of that.
Yeah, so you should be. I like to ask people it because I think a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking of all their negative qualities.
Yeah.
We all do. I joke around and talk about how amazing I am, but that's because that's not a joke. But we should be able to acknowledge the things we love about ourselves too. And
Agreed.
I think it's very important.
And I think that Iris is a brilliant context for those kinds of conversations.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I've never loved myself more than doing Iris stuff.
Yeah.
Plug in. So your film, Just Me, brilliant film, and I'm glad to see that you've relaxed now. They were very, very nervous about my intense dating questions. So, what was your inspiration behind writing it?
So a close friend of mine was having some realizations about their gender identity, and I'd done a number of short films for this educational charity platform called TrueTube that I've been lucky enough to work with for a few years, and they've been in the structure of these extended, like, idealized dialogues between two characters who sometimes might be on polar opposite sides of an argument, or might be like in some kind of a relationship but with tension between them that they're trying to figure out. And it came out of the idea of wanting basically to see, like, as a believer in communication, the dream conversation that could help like a young audience understand like a wide range of aspects of a topic, like extremism, or we did one for sex and relationships education as well for schools. And so it seemed, because gender identity is a topic that I would say most people like haven't had the opportunity to spend a lot of time thinking about or learning about, it seemed like a really good format to kind of do that in. And it's obviously can be a really challenging thing in a relationship when somebody begins to question their gender identity and realize who they really are. And that seemed like a kind of ripe opportunity for doing something quite dramatic, but also useful, which is what I always want to be with the stuff that I make.
Well, it definitely was useful, 100%. Like, even as like a queer person, like watching it made me think of stuff that I hadn't even thought about for people who were non-binary, transgender, gay. It just opened a whole different window that I was like, oh, I've never actually even thought about that. I think one of the biggest questions that I had for the film was, why do you think that Jaz's boyfriend, Charlie in the film, can't quite wrap his head around that? Like, he takes it quite hard, the change. Why do you think that is for people?
Yeah, so that was I felt like it was really important to, and I hope that people do feel this, to like give space and airtime for like a partner who is faced with this new information and has to kind of process it, because I think that like a lot of the time people can feel like their fear or uncertainty about things changing in the world is not heard. And I think that's how we kind of become divided, you can get people double down on their prejudices as a result of not having the space to, express how it feels to have your worldview challenged, in that way. And I think there's lots of reasons. Like I wouldn't want to kind of claim to know all of them, but I think that we all grow up deep in the gender binary, and it's a paradigm that is it affects the parameters of our worldview. It's something that on a daily basis we're exposed to the gender binary. I was in Paddington Station this morning, and I still have to obviously actually, sorry, can I cycle back? I'm rambling. There are a lot of reasons. I think that Charlie reacts out of fear and out of insecurity, and I think what was important for us to tap into, and I think this is one of the opportunities that drama gives you, is that ultimately in the film his insecurity is about losing somebody he loves, and it was really striking when researching the film, like hearing from people who've been through that experience of being on that side of a relationship when your partner is realizing their gender identity, and to hear about the fear of sorry, I'm rambling again.
It's okay. We can move on to another question.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably an out in there somewhere for Harrison.
No problem. So they Jaz has a line in the film where they say, I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, about you're a kid and it's all fine, and all of a sudden then your parents decide that they're gonna assign you a gender. Why do you think that it's so accepting for like the kids to do it? Because it must be quite a shock to them. It's something that I hadn't even thought about. That you're allowed to, like, I remember I was younger and was allowed to play with dolls and act like that, and then at some point I got given footballs and I had to start doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I would hesitate to put it on parents because I think it's just it's social, it's cultural. It's something people do without even thinking about. I was rereading my treatment for the film that I wrote on the way here, and one of the things that I'd written was about how a lot of the harm that's caused by that's caused to the emotions and psychologies of people who are gender non-conforming or trans is done without the person who might be doing it having any awareness whatsoever that they're doing it, because again we're not given the tools, we're not given the knowledge to place our expectations of our kids and of each other, in that wider context of the fact that gender is a social construct, and so I think, I mean, I realize now that there are aspects of becoming being brought up as a teenage boy that I found traumatic, but I didn't I only realized that really recently. And I kind of feel like there are things which are cut off from, even if you never question your gender and you remain within the gender binary for your entire life and you're comfortable there are things that at that age you're deprived of on quite an arbitrary basis, which I think is really sad, and I think it's I do wonder, like, what other selves kind of everybody has, available to them if they were given the choice, like, at a certain age, to be something different and to be interested in different things.
Yeah, that's beautiful. No, I like that. Just giving, like, what else is inside you that you
Yeah.
have that just got limited from society, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
There's another really beautiful thing that you say in a line in the film, and I haven't cried for a long time, but I was sitting in North Wales in a lovely little cottage, and then Jaz says that, I can't remember what Charlie says, and Jaz replies, but it's not a grey area, I'm all the colours. What did you mean by that, and what did you want people to feel from that?
So I don't know if I can take full credit for that line. I think it came up in the research, and I, in some form, obviously it's also kind of built into the queer rainbow, and I guess when you're writing, you're always looking for metaphors and ways to try to like capture an idea that is complex and might be too abstract, and that's as visual as you can get, right, with one of those. I think it speaks a little bit to the fact that people perceive even when you perceive gender to be a spectrum, it can be perceived as a spectrum between being a man and being a woman, or being something in between. And I would probably challenge that as well, to say that that is what, just as a way of talking about it, just to kind of in the linguistics of it, like that ends up with the phrasing of, oh, you're in a grey area, which is not only like reductive, it's unnecessarily limiting as well, I think, because there are all sorts of ways of like dressing or expressing or behaving or talking, and they don't all have to sit in between these two fixed points that we've kind of learnt. We've all learnt to live by needlessly. Yeah, no, for sure. That absolutely makes sense. So you're making the film. What scene to you struck out the most? What was the one that you were like, that hit my heart? It makes me laugh because the film is basically all one scene. Yeah, you know what I mean. Which part? So for me, when making it, it's actually one shot really early on, and we shot it. The actors are in it, but they weren't there while we were shooting it. There's a shot of a few photos on the inside walls of the boat where the film's set, just before the long silences that kind of start off the film. And we'd taken these photos earlier in the week, and it's Jaz and Charlie in the park, as if, you know, a couple of years ago in their relationship. And what we wanted to do was create these photos where Charlie looks completely relaxed and comfortable in his own skin. And Jaz, you wouldn't know if you didn't know, but Jaz is not comfortable and not relaxed. And so we went out and took these photos on the Monday of our shooting week. And Fionn Evans, who is the phenomenal actor who plays Jaz in the film, they are also non-binary. And so I think, without wanting to put words into their mouth, I think they understood sort of quite intuitively what I was going for. And it's something that I've seen in photos of myself from the past as well, that a lot of people are uncomfortable in front of the camera, and this is similar but also slightly different. You don't necessarily know why you're uncomfortable. And I was going through my own journey while we were making the film as well. And we were just shooting this cut where it was me and the director of photography and the production designer and a photo on the wall. And Toby Lloyd, my wonderful director of photography, I start name checking people, very important. We were just doing this move in around the lamp onto this photo, and I could see the expression that Fionn had done in the photo earlier in the day, and I just recognized it so deeply and profoundly in myself, and I just started crying. I just had to step away, and it really took me by surprise. I think, you know, when your actors are there, obviously as a director, you've got to be very much on top of everything, and so I think that kind of thing is sort of less likely to happen. But there was something about like the safety of that space and what I saw in Fionn's amazing performance in a still image that got to me. But yeah, I think it's probably unlikely that that's the most emotive part of the film for any of the audience members, because at that point no one has any idea what's going on. But yeah, that was what got me.
That's so beautiful. And I'm going to rewatch this when I go home now and see and actually look out for it. That's so powerful. Like, there's so much story just behind like that picture where they like just look a bit uncomfortable.
Well, they're tiny details, aren't they? And you really hope that they do a thing, that the cumulative effect of them and the intent is part of the impact that the story has by the end, and that even though you don't notice it when you're watching it the first time, that it helps you feel the authenticity of the depth of the relationship, and, you know, all the things that you have to do to just make a world exist from nothing, which is always a terrifying thing. You just assume that people are going to be like, well, that's not very convincing, you know. I hope it adds something. Well, even though it's subtle.
I mean, you literally just told me about it, and my like heart is like racing. If I start like warbling in my voice, it's because I'm crying. So, was it important for you that you had someone who was actually non-binary play Jaz?
Yeah, it was, and I really wavered around this. I think thing that probably a lot of people who are, you know, casting people with specific experiences go around, which is that argument that is very like widespread of, you know, do you get like the right person or the best person? And so I went around with that for a while, and I was like, that's bullshit. And actually, the reason why that argument exists is because the right people haven't had enough access to the industry. You know, there are almost no roles out there that are gender non-conforming roles, you know, and obviously as a gender non-conforming actor, you don't have to just play gender non-conforming roles, of course, but I was just like, well, it might be difficult to find someone who is the right fit, but they're definitely out there, and so we'll just put in as much effort as we need to find them. So we reached out to there are a few agencies specializing in queer talent in London, so we reached out to them and did open calls on all the casting platforms, and just, you know, we were consulting with this wonderful charity called Gendered Intelligence as well in London. They've got like a network of young performers. So we really just put out as many like feelers as we could, and we ended up having I think 2/3 of the actors who read for Jazz, so maybe like 20-ish actors were trans and or gender non-conforming actors, and all 3 of the actors who we shortlisted for Jazz were. So I think it's important because it's important to create more opportunities for those who are underrepresented in the industry. I think it's important because it's also better for the work, like, you know, and Fionn is the right person and the best person.
They were brilliant in it. Like, my voice is getting all soft because it was, honestly, I just found it so beautiful. I found like their interaction beautiful. I found the struggle between them beautiful, and that like internal battle that Charlie was going through of trying to understand it but not wanting to lose them. There's another two. Basically, every moment of this film was great for me. But there's 2 parts that I really, really loved, which Jazz starts going to leave, and they say, "I just want to be me," and Charlie's like, "Well, what is me?" And they start explaining, and Charlie's like, "Oh, well, yeah, you are funny," and it's like getting them to realize like you're still the same person. That really like bang.
I'm glad that came across. Yeah, because I think it's so easy to be boxed by your, I mean, can I say like minority characteristics? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's so easy to be perceived, I think, as, you know, to be defined by the thing about you that is not conforming to, like, you know, the majorities, you know, whether it's your ethnicity or your gender or your sexuality, and that's a real problem in culture and storytelling, you know, that like I mean, I'm slightly self-conscious about the fact that this is another queer coming out film. Do you know what I mean? Like, even though I hope it's a really sophisticated one, but so many of the stories out there about queer people are coming out stories, and that's important, but we also need lots of other different stories where our queerness is just like completely incidental, you know, and so that was an idea that I had quite early on, that I really wanted to give us the opportunity to open up this seam into everything else that Jazz is, and for them as a character, you know, it's and I think that, to your question that you asked me at the beginning, that I struggle so much with, of like, what do you love about yourself? You know, we don't have the spaces socially to have those conversations, and so I hope that it's some good modeling for people to, you know, appreciate themselves when they've watched the film.
No, definitely. And it's like you said, something that I've thought about when you talk about minorities, and so for being a gay person of color, every time you see, a lot of the time you see, I shouldn't say every time, a lot of the time you watch films, it's about them coming out and how hard it was for their family, and that is absolutely a massive issue that should always be addressed. But there are some people like me who had a lovely time, and it's not relatable, and then it kind of exiles you a little bit, because you're like, well, that wasn't me, so do I not have a place because it wasn't her? Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
But no, I just love it. And then the moment where Charlie kisses Jazz's hair, when, like, because it starts off and like that's what seems to have been like the straw that broke the camel's back, and Charlie's just so worked up, and that's the thing he can wrap his head around. And then when he starts coming around and he kisses Jazz's head, jeez.
I think it's so important to show compassion and love on screen. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a really interesting bind, because like one of the earliest things that you learn as like a writer, is if whatever form of, like, even just studying English or something at school, like, that conflict is the core of drama, you know? And I remember thinking it in the first time I tried to make a film, one of these films, which was about extremism, and the setup is kind of, when I describe it, it sounds quite trite, but like there's a kind of far right, like, semi-fascist sort of young man in his early 20s and fundamentalist Muslim young man in his early 20s, and they're in a ruckus in an alleyway, and then this is tangent, but I will explain why this is relevant.
I believe you.
Thank you. Basically the arc of the film, in a similar way to this one, is that through conversation it becomes like a pressure valve so it starts with them literally beating each other up, but then by the end of the film they've reached a kind of accord and a companionship and talked out a lot of the things that sort of divide them and realize how similar they are in a lot of ways. And when I was coming up with that idea, I was quite concerned about the fact that I felt like the film was just going to get gradually less dramatic from the first second to the end, and that would not work as a film, if you see what I mean. That it wouldn't fit with the kind of shape that we're familiar with of a peak of kind of conflict just before the very end, and why did I start talking about that train of thought? And so I do think it's something that we have to work really hard, like as writers, to figure out how to show, and because I work for young audiences quite a lot as well, and this film in part, is made with a young audience in mind, how to show and model like compassion and allyship and listening, and communication, and that Charlie does there, even though I think he's not quite there with everything yet. He doesn't completely understand, but he recognizes the importance of that gesture of love, so I'm happy that it resonated with you. It's Toby that my DP's it's his favorite moment in the film as well.
It absolutely completely resonated. It just said everything it needed to say, and I think you touched on this just again and also earlier, that sometimes people expect when you give them news about yourself that they're expected to react perfectly straight away, and sometimes it is like retraining your brain from everything that you've been like systematically told. And I love the Jaz sort of goes to leave but also gives them the time to like process it, and then also Charlie being like, can we just talk? I want to understand. And I'm assuming, obviously, because the film ends, that they have a night of talking.
Yeah. It's that was obviously, I mean, it's the very end of the film. It was the last line that we shot, and it was Charlie saying, Sam Buchanan, shout out, wonderful actor. Do work with him as well. Charlie saying, can we just talk some more? I want to understand more. And I think that's I could be really grand and say that I feel like that could sum up like my intent as a filmmaker in a wider sense. It's an incredible medium for sharing our differing experiences of the world, and I think that again, like, just it's a good thing to model, isn't it? Like, we don't all have to be completely on top of everything that's going on to be able to extend that hand and be like, okay, first of all, I'm just going to listen to start with, so it was very moving to like call that it was a wrap after seeing Sam like nail that line. That was great.
It was great. So you said this like really early at the start of the interview, and it's just something that sort of like rang out in me about like, do you think that everyone has that access to just love whoever, and it's kind of more of a society thing that like stops us from doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, a lot of people go through things obviously at a really young age that are like extraordinarily difficult and damaging, and so to place, I wouldn't want to place that presumption on everybody that you need to have the wherewithal and the initiative to like extend love to everyone, because it's not easy, and it's much hard. I mean, I'm very conscious of my privilege in a lot of different ways, and I've had some trauma in my life, but not too much, and but I do really think that, and this is why I get so angry with a lot of political rhetoric, because it's really easy to win an election by making people not like each other, or trying to make people angry with other people, and I think it does massive damage to our interactions with each other in a way that goes way, way beyond that moment of, that election day, or I'm sort of skirting around whatever your actual question was, but yeah, no, I think that I think there are a lot of social structures that we kind of take for granted, and that a lot of the time we don't even notice and we don't see, but that make it harder for us to look after each other. And it's an exciting challenge to try to reveal them or to explore them, and hopefully, as you say, make space for love as much as possible.
All love. Yeah. Well, we're running out of time now, so I have one last question for you.
Okay, cool.
Do you believe in life after love?
I can't get past the song ringing in my head now. So yeah. Do you want me to actually answer the question, or you just for the reaction?
Just for the reaction, yeah. And that.
This has gone so quickly. I have enjoyed this.
I'm glad. Yeah. Kept you relaxed, kept you comfortable. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me and giving me your
having me.
No, anytime.
It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Come over for dinner sometime. Well, I'll cook you a curry.
Cool.
You can cast me in something, hopefully. Guys, thank you so much for listening in. They've been Adam. I've been on Verge of a Nervous Breakdown since 2006. Make sure you subscribe to Iris Podcast, and we'll hope to catch you again soon. Bye.